Ace Attorney! Okay, let's try something new at this time. I'll be using the microphone that's actually integrated in the camera this time around because I can't really wear a headset like this. I'm not gonna lie, my history with the Ace Attorney series is pretty interesting, given that I was originally introduced to it through my sister, who was playing it while I was having my final exams at high school. She was playing it on the Wii Virtual Console, so I could just kind of, after I finished studying, come down, sit down next to her, and chillax a little bit, watching these silly cases. It provided me with some much needed levity from my examination hell. As you can easily tell, I'm a huge fan of the games. In fact, they influenced me greatly. They introduced me to lots of stuff, like the idea of actually participating actively in a fandom, peeing. And it's also probably one of the few reasons why I didn't fail the politics and law examination and my Japanology course in university. Yeah, despite all the nonsense, it was actually pretty useful with learning the Japanese law system, go figure. I'm probably not overstating anything when I say that this series was very important to me personal to get me where I am. It made me the person that I am right now. I met a lot of friends that I have right now through this series. I met my boyfriend through this series. And it was actually through fans of this series that I first learned of the existence of the Persona series. So I guess you can thank Ace Attorney for me being a Persona fan as well. So yeah, even back in the days, like 5-6 years ago, I was actually really excited at the idea of an Ace Attorney anime, except when the live-action movie came out, of which I am a fan, but I think it doesn't quite capture the same feeling as something animated. I kind of thought this was done for, because with an adaptation already existing, an adaptation to the big screen no less, I didn't think anyone would still see the point in making an animated adaptation, but lo and behold, they did. The Ace Attorney anime is now a thing that exists, joining the Danganronpa anime and the Persona 4 anime up there in the ranks of animated, somewhat mystery nonsense. And I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty excited to see this show. It was just the idea of seeing all these adventures, these cases animated. It got me pretty hyped, so I decided, why not do a relux on that? I've been wanting to do a relux on something that's somewhat decently popular, and that will not get me into hell with a fandom that I barely know anything about. So why not this? I mean, Ace Attorney's always been important to me, so why not? So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into this. For everybody who doesn't know what Ace Attorney is about, let me give you a quick skimming. Ace Attorney is a show about lawyers. That's actually not really describing it very well. It started out as the story of Phoenix Wright, known in the Japanese version as Naruhodo Ryuichi, who is a young lawyer in a world where the law system of the country he lives in has been overhauled in the worst possible way. In his world, trials are held in what is known as a 3-day initial trial system, where one is assumed guilty until proven innocent, and cases can only go on for 3 days before they are dropped or the client is declared guilty by default, which is pretty bad, as you probably can imagine. It opens up for a lot of corruption, which is exactly what this show is about in a lot of cases. It is this game series, so to this day, is greatly about these lawyers trying to fight against the corrupt system, trying to still allow justice to prevail, despite the system being stacked against the defendants, regardless of whether they've actually done anything wrong or not. It basically follows the adventures of Phoenix as he tries to solve impossible murder cases by finding the true killers. So it's very much a murder mystery kind of story, but it's also known for being extremely silly. Like, the characters are very colorful. Everybody is named after a pun or something, like Teddy would have a field day with this game. Sometimes it's not even people who are named after puns, it's locations, everything is a pun. Everything is a pun in this world. It's also very over the top with the way the characters move, the way they express themselves, the body language. It's amazing because these games only use 2D sprites, but like the sprites were so expressive. Even when the art wasn't good, the expressions were still very convincing. You really felt it felt almost cinematic, despite the limited angles and the fact that it's a visual novel. It was really fun that way. You really wanted to meet new people just to see how they move, just to see what kind of crazy tics they have. I'm not going to be talking about the characters too much now, because in case anybody who hasn't played the games yet and just wants to experience the show as it goes on watches this, I don't want to spoil them. So I'm just gonna say I'm one of the main characters, an important friend of Phoenix, but my character does not appear in the show until next week, so you can look forward to that. The cosplay, I'm talking about the cosplay, not me. I'm not a character in a game. I'm in fact real. You can believe me. Sometimes I don't believe it myself, but I'm in fact real. So now let's talk about the show. And before I talk about anything else, I just want you guys, I want you guys to look at the opening of the show. Trust me, please look at the opening of the show. You won't regret it. I don't even... This opening is a meme waiting to happen. Like, oh my god, look at this. This is literally the first thing you're gonna show us, show. This is really the first thing that we're going to see. How does an animation work? Running animation. Oh my god, all the cliches. Every single cliche. Oh my god. I can hear the Yowie Bengal scream. And then again, this is pretty ironic given what the ending gives us. Was this even ever a carry that happened in this? Oh my god, she's 16! Do you know that the Japanese attorney's badge is actually based on a sunflower? And with this I've ruined to you the only bit of somewhat subtle symbolism in the whole opening. You're welcome! So, yeah, this opening is pretty, I would say unique, but that would be a lie. It's literally every anime opening ever. It's like, you take a time capsule and go back into the early 2000s. And like, I understand why this is happening, because unlike the Persona 4 anime or the Danganronpa anime, this show is being aired in the kids block. So they are trying to go for something that fits with other kids animes, kids mystery animes and so on. But still, this is I enjoy it. It's so corny, I can't even hate it. It has a charm to it. The songs they used are incredibly generic. This is nothing that I'm going to be listening to on my phone, but I'll get to that later. But yeah, oh boy. This is nostalgic in all the wrong ways. Let's see what the actual show's like. Surprisingly, it's actually a very accurate adaptation of the games. Like, the first episode is pretty much point to point, replaying what the tutorial case of the game was like. It has the exact same story, same characters, heck, even the same tone.
分かってる。僕はそう信じてる。でも主に世間ではお前だってことになってるんだよな。
But at the same time, the script is not just like ripped from the games. It's not the same dialogue, but it feels like dialogue that could have been in the game. The characters are all spot on, even though if Larry Butts was actually somewhat exaggerated, if that's even possible. But yeah, in terms of feel, it really did feel like Ace Attorney. I was pleasantly surprised there. It was really, you could guess along, it felt a lot like it did in the games, but at the same time, it did not just rip the structure from the game. They actually paid close attention to making sure that it didn't just feel like the game we played on a big screen, but it actually has this typical feel of a mystery anime with a pacing that is very similar to this. And they even paid attention to that everything that you didn't need to explain in the games because of how limited it was with the sprites, that you had to play with your imagination to get it right. They actually paid attention to having this make sense in the context of the anime. Like the evidence is actually placed on a table in front of the whole court, and the characters don't just throw it around between their tables or wave it up in the air. Instead, they actually have to put on gloves before they handle it like they would in a real court, which is something that this was always a big complaint about the games, that the characters didn't handle the evidence which they cared that they ought to. But here they actually had to put on gloves. They actually had cameras pointed on the evidence, a little bit like they did in the live action movie that they made, so that you could actually see how this could actually work in a court of law, even if we still have this totally unrealistic 3-day trial system. But more about that next week. Something else that they really nailed spot on were the characters. Like Phoenix and Mia Fey, Phoenix Wright and Mia Fey, these two are some of the core characters of the series, and you really felt their characters come through. Like, they nailed Phoenix in every way possible. You get his serious side, you get his sense of justice, the way he does take life seriously, but at the same time you also see his dorky side. Like, the first thing you see of him is like his apartment, which is in a total mess, which we know he is not the most orderly person, because like in later games we actually see what the law officers turn out like when he handles the he has everything still in the cardboard boxes. He doesn't bother unpacking it just yet. He's just sort of half-heartedly moving them out of the way. It's little touches like that that really makes it for me. Also his bike that he frequently talks about in the games, but we can't really see him use because, well, sprites. Here we actually get to see this bike and he uses it plenty, and it just feels right. It really feels like this character. And I was actually skeptical when I heard the voice cast was announced. I don't remember who was who right now, but I remember that I was actually skeptical if these voice actors could pull off these characters. But surprisingly, right now they all feel just right. Like, Mia feels like Mia, Phoenix feels like Phoenix, the judge feels like the judge, Pain feels like Pain. It's all perfect so far. The voice acting is amazing. The direction is great, and it really does feel like Ace Attorney. In some ways, it actually really is the Ace Attorney anime that I've always wanted. It was adapted in the best way possible in that way. But now it's time to talk about some of the negative things. You see, this show has some problems. I already mentioned that that is airing in a children's slot, and like, children's anime in Japan doesn't have the reputation for the best animation, you know. We have already seen the dopey running animation during the opening, and regrettably, well, if it's in the opening, you can imagine that the actual show's not much better about it. And this animation is, no! This is the same studio that did a whole lot of the Persona stuff that has come out recently, and like, you know how there were complaints about the animation in the Persona 4 the golden anime not being as good as people would have hoped? Now take all the derp that you had in the animation in Persona 4 Golden and square it. Then square it again. Then quadruple it. And then despair. Like the way their objections are animated actually feels incredibly stilted. Sometimes the angles are really stilted too. Sometimes they are really trying too hard to stay to the feel of the game, to the point that they actually are sticking to these very limited angles that the game gave you, and it looks wrong. In animation, it just looks really wrong to stick to these angles and have the characters move in these limited frames. Especially the mouth animation sometimes is really terrible, to the point that even the mouths in the game were animated better than in the show. It's supposed to advertise the show, so you'd imagine that in the first episode they would show off their best animation. And if this is the best they have to offer, then I'm really afraid for what there's to come, especially in some of the more action-driven moments in later episodes of the games. As good as the script is, it just can't always distract you from how stilted and how off the animation is. Then, just like 10 minutes into the show, the anime commits one of the cardinal sins of children's anime. One of the cardinal sins of CGI too. Never draw attention to the CGI. But this show does. It draws attention to the CGI it's using right in the first 10 minutes, and it looks awful. It looks terrible. No moment of it looks right. You never believe that this is there. It looks like the characters are just sock puppets in a cardboard set. And why? At which moment in the process did you think that this was a good artistic choice? You can't even say that it was to save money, because it is not that hard to animate a square box to make a table. Even I can do that, and I can't even animate. So I think they are still under the delusion that CGI is cool. A1 animation? A1 animation, come here. Come here, I have to talk to you about something just a little bit. Let me talk to you. The 90s are over! It hasn't been the 90s for almost 20 years. Please let it go. It's really sad, because some of the effects that they use are actually pretty creative. Like some of the ideas that they use to visualize Phoenix thoughts by having ideas just that would be noted in the game, with like the text being a different color, actually pop up like almost like it's physical around him. This is going to come in really handy with later seasons, with the mechanics later on in the games, because it really feels like they are setting up for that already. This is going to be interesting, especially because they, unlike a certain other adaptation, they're actually taking their time with the cases. What we've seen in the preview for the next episode, it seems that they are doing one episode per trial day in the game, meaning that there will be 3 episodes for Turnabout Sisters, 2 episodes maybe for the case after that, 3 episodes for the final case. This is going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing this, because with this pacing, actually, they might actually manage 1 season per game, and with 1 season per game, they can actually, like, if they manage 4 seasons, we might actually get to Apollo Justice. I'm really liking the translation that Crunchyroll offers. I watched this on Crunchyroll, and I would suggest you do too, because it's legal and it's not expensive, and the translation that they offer is really good, and they offer you 2 translation choices in English. They have 1 translation that is based on the translation of the games, which means that you have English names. They don't hide that it's set in Japan though. They still say it's set in Japan to avoid issues, but you still have the English names. So if you're used to those, this might be really helpful to you. Or if you're really are a purist who wants to see the Japanese version, they also have subtitles, English subtitles that use the Japanese names. So you have the choice there. So yeah, this was good so far. Hopefully the animation will get better. There's really, I can't say that it was exciting, because like it's the tutorial case. This could never have been exciting. Don't kid yourself. This could never have been anything more than it was. But for what it was, they got a lot of mileage out of it. they actually managed to intersplice it with some foreshadowing for later on and some clever foreshadowing too. Like for everybody who hasn't played the games, they are actually strewing some interesting ideas there that I'm looking forward to how they will pan out, even though the fandom is probably going to spoil everyone on the later twists anyway, so. But yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. I'll see you again then. Take care. Bye, and I'll chat to you. Oh my god, this is so old. No wonder that it doesn't last for long anymore.